For today, Module 3, yung concern ng Module 3 or yung uh, focus niya, it's about managing and caring for self. No? Under managing and caring for self, of course, part nito yung learning. Something to do with learning, of course, yung how to become a better student. No? Probably, ano lang to, no, parang review lang. Kasi you have already established your study habit or your paraan mo paano ka mag-aral, no? Okay? So here, iano natin, explore natin yung mga different theories with something to do with learning. And of course, another emphasis, something to do with self-regulated learning. No? Okay, allow me to share my screen. Okay. So this is the first part of module 3, no? Something to do with learning and then the tiers of learning and self-regulated learning. The second part of this is something to do with self-care, no? Yeah, or the caring for self. So when we refer to learning, how do we define learning? So what is learning? So probably learning is very significant with my name, no? Kung titignan niyo yan. The word learn, no? Parang sinyapol mo lang, sorry. Hanggang dito pa. The word learn, no? Parang sinyapol mo lang yung pangalan ko, ayan. Mel, no? So, learning. Siguro kaya naging teacher ako. Joke, no? It's, kasi it's something to do with my name. Biro lang. Ano lang yun? Coincidence lang. So, if we define learning, so in psychology or in any behavioral sciences, learning it's something to do with the permanently change of behavior brought about by experience. So that is learning. No? Ibig sabihin, kapag may change or pagbabago, may learning. Learning take place. No? Pero kung walang nagbago, walang palitan, so there is no learning. No? Of course, in academic, academic word or something to do with the academe, kapag sinabi nating learning, it simply refers to the acquisition of knowledge, no? Acquiring knowledge, skills through or by experience, study, or by being taught. Tama, di ba? Gaya ng ginagawa natin. Kung hindi ka na mag-aaral kung walang learning na nangyayari. No? But sometimes it's, we didn't know if there is learning. No? Kasi sometimes what involve only, it's something to do with our memory. No? So it's more of something to do with memory lang, no? Or remembering, no? Kumbaga natandaan mo lang siya, pero wala namang learning na nangyari. But take note, there is no learning without memory. Kasi kung wala kang memory, wala rin learning, di ba? How can you learn something without remembering it? So it's very important that we remember first, no? So parang ano yan, no? Stage by stage siya. Okay. To explore learning, of course, there are different theories that will explain how learning take part, no? Or how we acquire or remember certain information or learn something. No? First, we have the law of effect by Edward Thorndike, and then the classical conditioning by Ivan Petrovich Pavlov, the operant conditioning by Bruce Frederick Skinner, and then we have the cognitive development theory by John Piaget, and then the social, cultural, and cognitive development theory by Lev Vygotsky, and then the social learning theory by Albert Bandura, and lastly, it's something to do with self-regulated learning. Actually, all these theories of learning na i-discuss ko ngayon, somehow, no, in your facilitating learning and in other major subject in your in education, ma-encounter nyo sila ulit. No? Parang ito ano na to, pang teaser, no? Or teaser or background nila, no? Which they are somehow used. Kasi if you are an educator or in the future you are a teacher, so somehow dapat alam mo mga yan. Particularly sa mga BE Ed, yung cognitive development ni Chan Piaget, and of course yung kay Vygotsky, yung social, cultural, and cognitive theory. No? And yung iba is something to do with motivation and learning. Dalawang yan, no? Yung tatlong ito. Okay? So what about the law of effect? No? How does the law of effect define learning? So for the law of effect kay Edward E. Thorndike, it simply defined learning as sabi niya, when behavior or performance is accompanied by satisfactions, parang belief siya, no, or principle, it tends to happen again, no? And any behavior followed by unpleasant consequences is likely to be stopped. Okay? Ano bang, parang ano lang yan, no, ng something to do with reward, no? Something to do with reward or something to do with punishment. Parang similar siya sa operant conditioning. But of course, hindi niya naman inaano yung reward and punishment. But for the law of effect, it simply defined na things will happen again or behavior will tend to happen again if there is satisfaction. And probably, if there is an unpleasant consequences, it will stop, correct? Example, you nag-review ka, no? And then midterm exam kinabukasan. And then, let's say, in your first day, ito yung consequences niya, no? Yung result, out of 90, you got only 40. So that means there's something, no? May mali or something may hindi siya effective. I'm referring now to your habit, something to do with your study habit. So that means hindi effective yung study habit mo kasi yung result niya hindi maganda, no? Now, dahil nga hindi maganda, so probably anong gagawin mo? You will change that study habit that you have. Tama? So ganun lang yung sa law of effect. Kaya nga law of effect, no, yung magpapatuloy siya kung may dulot siyang maganda. Ihinto siya kapag hindi maganda yung naging resulta. No? Kaya under the law of effect, when a behavior or performance is accompanied by satisfaction, it tends to happen again, and any behavior followed by unpleasant consequences or consequence, it's likely to be stopped. Okay? Tama, di ba? Do you agree with that? Anyone? Can I see some thumbs up or any reactions? Okay, thank you, Jamaica. Thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Zeri. Thank you, Randy, and thank you, Mark. Okay? Now, to continue, from the law of effect, we are now moving to the classical conditioning. Although some, they disagree with this one, no? But if you were going to ask me, hindi naman, no? I think this is also true, no? This is also happening to human, no? Kasi yung classical conditioning ni Ivan Petrovich Pavlov, it's more of yung kanyang experiment. It's something to do with a dog, no? Kumbaga, you cannot compare daw a dog from a human being. But yung kanyang findings, something also true to human, no? Bakit? Ano ba yung inaano ng classical conditioning? In the classical conditioning, it's stated that a response is drawn out of the organism by specific identifiable stimulus, no? Kumbaga yung tinatawag yung stimulus plus response equals behavior or the SR relationship, no? Stimulus and then response. Stimulus and then response, no? Pag sinabi natin stimulus, anything that cause to response or to react, no? Example, may nangyayari bang ano ngayon, SR sa atin? Is there anything that something to do with SR as of now? May nangyayari bang SR? Stimulus response. Anyone in the class would like to say something about that? Yes, Mark?
Meron po, sir.
Yes. Can you identify the stimulus? Ano ba yung stimulus na ngayon?
Halimbawa po, sir, nag-ask po kayo ng question, then yung respondent po, kami po yung mag-respond, sir.
Yes, yung kanina, a while ago, I'm asking, that is the stimulus, no? Yun ang stimulus. Ngayon, nagre-respond ka, nagre-react ka. Of course, that is your behavior and that is your response, no? Okay? Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on. Now, so in the classical conditioning, ito yung experiment ni Ivan Pavlov, no? It's something to do with a dog, no? Una, pinresent niya yung bell, no? Huwag mo nang tingnan yung nasa baba, no? Parang before the conditioning, itong nangyayari, no? So merong isang bell and then he showed this bell to the dog. So probably the dog did not do any, has no reaction, no? Yun nga, the dog did not salivate or did not show any visceral or biological reaction. So probably walang reaction, no? No reaction. So kasi yung bell dito, it served as a neutral stimulus. Kapag sinabi natin neutral stimulus, it is a stimulus that stimulate to respond or not to respond. So, okay, sa dog, dahil wala naman siyang prior learning about this one, wala siyang reaction. Okay. But for us as human being, kapag narinig natin yung bell, ano yung papasok sa isipan natin or probably mayroon magre-reminisce tayo, no? Or something, there's certain memory na mare-recall natin. Okay? So, Randy, kapag narinig mo yung bell, ano yung unang papasok sa isipan mo? Mr. Randy? Mr. Randy? Mr. Randy? Okay, wala reaction si Randy. Yes, Mr. Joshua.
It's break time, sir.
Yes. Yun ang sinasabi ko, no? Parang nung grade school ka, pag narinig mo yung bell, yes, recess, kakain mo na, parang gano'n. Yes, thank you for that. How about Alicia? Yes, Alicia, Miss Alicia Navarro.
Yung kampana po, sir, ng simbahan.
Okay, yes, pwede rin yun, no? Kapag associate that with the bell. Thank you for that. Tama, no? Malapit na simbang gabi, probably yun ang maalala mo. Okay? Exactly. How about Lian?
Ano po, sir, may nagbebenta ng ice cream.
Tama, correct. O, di ba? Ang dami nating na prior knowledge about that. So we call that prior knowledge, no? Giselle, Bailon.
Ano po, yung wangwang parang sa kapag may sunog, ganun po.
Okay, yung sa ambulance. Siguro nung unang panahon yun, no? Pwede. Oh. Pero iba na yung siren ngayon. Pwede naman yun. Okay, Shane? Shane.
Yung sa school po, sir, yung pag nag-bell na po, ibig sabihin, papasok na po. Magpapasukan na po.
Yes. Singular kanina kay although yung kay yung break time. No? Very good. So, see, ito yung sinasabi nating conditioning. So, kung yung aso wala siyang reaction kapag narinig niya yung bell, tayo meron, no? Kasi nga yung aso wala naman siyang prior knowledge or prior learning. So, we can say na tayo, kaya tayo nagre-respond, na-condition yung mind natin, our mind that's been conditioned once na may ganitong stimulus. So, probably, yun ang magiging reaction natin. Okay? So, to continue. Now, later on, anong ginawa ni Pavlov? So, yung bell, pinair niya, no? Pinair niya sa food. So, yung bell na neutral stimulus, yung food, it can be called as unconditioned stimulus or pwede rin sabihin natin natural, no? Pwede rin siyang tawagin na natural stimulus, no? Iba yung neutral sa natural, no? Kasi as a natural, kasi it can easily elicit a certain response, no? Kahit naman tayo, anytime na makakita tayo ng food, so probably magugutom ka or parang matatakam ka, no? Okay. So, of course, sa food may respond yung dog, no? The dog start to salivate or show visual reaction or physical reaction, no? Siyempre, no? Kasi yung food sa kanya, stimulus siya, no? Pero yung bell hindi siya. Now, constantly fairing this one, no? With the unconditioned stimulus, pag sinabi nating natural or unconditioned stimulus, it's a stimulus that automatically stimulates to respond, no? Yung food yan. Now, after the conditioning, no? Halimbawa, for several days or several weeks, no? For several weeks, pinipair niya, no? Habang pinapakain niya yung dog, pinatutunog niya yung bell, no? Now, yung kanyang final kumbaga yung hypothesis niya, kung magre-respond ulit yung dog sa bell after conditioning. So what he did, siyempre, pinakita lang niya, pinatunog lang niya yung bell, and then, yung aso, he has same reaction, no? Nag-react na siya ng similar after, no? Kahit na walang food. So here, yung bell na dating natural stimulus, tinatawag na natin ngayon siya ng conditioned stimulus, no? A neutral stimulus that when paired with a conditioned stimulus elicit a similar response. A while ago, sa dog, yung bell, wala siyang response. Neutral stimulus siya, no? Pero sa atin, for human, kapag narinig natin to, no? For a person, tayo, no? Pag narinig natin yung bell, may reaction tayo. Kasi yung bell sa atin, hindi na siya natural stimulus. For us, the bell is yung bell sa atin for a person is a conditioned stimulus. Kasi we have prior knowledge, no? Nagkaroon na tayo na-condition na tayo. Diba, nung hindi ka pa nag-aaral, no? Let's say, hindi ka pa nag-aaral, let's say 4 years old ka pa lang, and then, kapag narinig mo yung bell, you are only thinking na may nagbebenta ng ice cream. Pero nung nag-aral ka na, pag narinig mo yung bell, hindi na yung nagbebenta ng ice cream. You are referring also to what we call yung recess, o kaya pasukan na. Okay? Okay, clear ba? Do you agree? Okay, I think clear naman, no? Yung sinasabi. Kaya nga, some, they oppose with this, with this theory dahil aso daw, no? Hindi daw applicable sa human being, no? Pero ganun talaga yung learning, no? Learning is something to do with conditioning, no? Okay. Now, so kapag finair mo yung neutral stimulus sa unconditioned stimulus, magpo-produce siya ng conditioned stimulus, no? Now, ang tawag naman sa learning, no, na natutunan ng aso kapag may tunog ng bell, may pagkain, association 'yon, di ba? So probably that is association for us, no? We consider that as association. Okay? Diba, pag narinig natin yung bell, may nagbibenta ng ice cream. We associate. No? That is association. But here, tinatawag siyang acquisition phase. Acquisition phase from the word acquire or from the word acquire, na-acquire niya yung idea kapag may bell, may pagkain. No? So the acquisition phase is referred to the learned response or behavior acquired during the consistent pairing of the conditioned stimulus and the unconditioned stimulus. Actually dito, no, yung constant pairing nito, it will lead, no, yung constant pairing ng food at saka ng bell, it would lead to what we call yung tinatawag na acquisition phase. Okay? Any reaction or concern or questions? Meron bang gustong itanong? Okay, maybe wala. Now, from the classical conditioning of Pavlov, we're moving to the operant conditioning. No? Ano naman pagkakaiba nito sa operant? No? In the operant conditioning, of course, yung proponent ay si Bruce Frederick Skinner. No? So, in the operant conditioning, parang ano to, law of effect. No? A behavior is made more likely to recur or occur when it is immediately reinforced. Pero naniniwala siya sa reinforcement, no, and it's less likely to happen again when the pleasant stimulus is removed, no, or the unpleasant stimulus is presented. Okay, ganun yung operant conditioning. Anong pagkakaiba, no? Ito lang ang difference niya, no? So, in the Skinner box, tinatawag natin yan Skinner box, no? So, fully equipped siya, no? May lever, ito yung lever, yung parang switch, no? And then may signal light, may speaker, may pellet, yung pagkain ng daga, and then yung dispenser tube lumalabas sa pagkain, and then may food cup, kung saan makakakain yung daga. And then may electric grid na pwedeng mag-produce ng kuryente. But anong ginawa niya? Una, what did Skinner did? No, he just let the mouse the mouse inside the cage or the Skinner box. No, inobserve niya. Nandyan lang siya. No? So, nakakulong yung daga, nandyan. No? Of course, yung dagang yan, wala siyang idea, di ba? Wala naman siyang idea or prior knowledge. No? And then, of course, nung nagutom yung daga, anong ginawa? Naglikot, of course, nag-explore, and then accidentally, napindot niya yung lever. No? Accidentally, napindot niya to. So, nung napindot niya yan, siyempre, may lalabas na pagkain. Okay? May lalabas na pagkain. No? Now, siyempre, dahil nga natutunan ng daga kapag pinindot niya, may lalabas na pagkain, in the following day and the succeeding days, kapag nagugutom siya, pinipindot lang niya yun. No? So, inayahan yon ni Skinner na gawin yon. Okay? So, tinatawag ni Skinner yon na reinforcement. Ito yung sinasabi niyang reinforcement. No? We call that one as reinforcement. Pag sinabi natin reinforcement, it's the process in which behavior is threatened and thus more likely to happen again. No? So, we call that as reinforcement. Tama? Saan ba natin yan, ma-associate? Sa ginagawa natin, no? Halimbawa, ito yung study habit mo, and then nung nag-exam, nag-midterm exam, mataas yung nakuha mo. So, the reward or the reinforcement, yung mataas yung grade mo. Okay, so probably gagawin mo ulit yun, di ba? Katulad ng daga, kapag tinrest na yung lever, may lalabas na pagkain, so probably, uulitin niyang gagawin yon, no? Now, in the reinforcement, meron tayong tinatawag na positive. Pag sinabi natin positive reinforcement, making a behavior stronger by following a behavior with pleasant stimulus. Okay? So, dahil nga yung daga, nakakakuha siya ng pagkain, so patuloy niyang gagawin yon. That is positive reinforcement. Negative naman, making behavior stronger by taking away a negative stimulus. For this part, wala pa yung negative stimulus. Later, meron na. No? Now, so, ngayon, parang the idea of Skinner, titignan niya kung yung daga, patuloy pa rin niyang ipipress yung lever. So, what he did, kapag pinress niya yung lever, okay, no? Kapag pinress niya yung lever, may lalabas na pagkain, at the same time makukuryente, no? Because of the electric grid, makukuryente yung daga. Okay? So, palagay nyo ba gagawin ulit ni, yes, Lian, you are recognized?
Para po
Lian.
siyang sir, reward versus punishment.
Yes, similar doon, no? Actually, yun ang no, yung concept niya. It's about reward and punishment. Parang yung sa nung stage 1 ni Lawrence Kohlberg, no? Tama, no? Tama. Okay? So, sa palagay nyo, kapag nakuryente yung daga, patuloy pa rin ba niyang ipipress yung lever? Joshua, sinasabi mong yes?
Yes, sir. Dahil
Okay.
magugutom siya pag di niya pinanes.
Okay. So, titiisin na yung kuryente, no? Pwede. Kasi it's a matter of life and death, no? Survival, tama. May kung tao siguro, no, pwede, Joshua, or magagawa ka ng paraan para hindi ka makuryente. Pero yung daga, hindi, walang paraan mo. Tama naman sagot ni Joshua. Yes, Miss Audrey.
Good morning po, sir.
Good morning.
Feeling ko po hindi niya na po ulit ipipress kasi po nakuryente na po sila. Parang parang sa tao kapag po nagkamali siya or may natanggap po siyang punishment, di niya na po gagawin ulit yon or gagawa na lang po siya ng paraan ulit na iba.
Correct. Okay. So tama, no? Pareho naman tama yung kahit kay Joshua, no? Same thing. Pero yung mangyayari talaga is sinabi ni Audrey, no? So we call that one as punishment. As mentioned by a while ago, nagsabi, no? Tama. This is something to do with the punishment. No? Pag sinabi natin punishment, this refer to the process in which a behavior is weakened or mawawala or stop and thus less likely to happen again. No? Tama, no? So, gaya sinabi ni Laika, no? Ay, Audrey pala. Yeah, Audrey Laika. So, probably yung daga, mag-stop siya, no? Ngayon, mayroon tayong tinatawag na negative punishment. Ito naman, pag sinabi natin negative punishment, reducing a behavior by removing a pleasant stimulus when the behavior occurs. So ito yon, no? Ito yung tinatawag, ito yung specific na nangyari. Ito, tinatawag natin yon na negative punishment. Yung nakuryente yung daga, kinuryente yung daga para ma-stop yung kanyang ginagawa before. No? So probably, hindi na niya pipindutin yung switch or yung lever para makakuha ng pagkain. No? And then positive punishment naman, reducing a behavior by presenting unpleasant stimulus when the behavior occurs. So the unpleasant stimulus here, yung electric grid, no? Ito yung tinatawag nating unpleasant stimulus. Dahil merong unpleasant stimulus, kaya hindi na siya mangyayari, no? Okay, sorry. Baka ma-confuse kayo, no? Now, in negative punishment, ito yung pala yung negative punishment, no? It's not something to do with the electric shock, no? In the negative punishment, halimbawa yung daga, pinipress niya yung lever na to, pero walang lumalabas na pagkain, no? Wala nang lumalabas na food. Okay? So probably, wala naman unpleasant stimulus. Of course, anong mangyayari, hindi naman nakuryente yung daga, anong mangyayari in the following, no? So probably, hindi na yung gagawin, no? May stop na. We call that one as extinction, no? Tinatawag yun na extinction. Parang extinct, no? Extinct na wala, no? Extinction. We call that one extinction phase, no? Pero nung merong unpleasant stimulus, tinatawag naman natin yun. So that is the negative punishment. At nung may unpleasant stimulus, that is the positive punishment. Now, what is this negative reinforcement naman? No? In negative reinforcement naman, making a behavior stronger by taking away the negative stimulus. Kabaliktaran naman. Ito, mangyayari to kapag hindi mo na kinuryente yung daga. And then dahil di na kuryente, patuloy niya yung gagawin ulit yung ginagawa niya. No? Parang sa work, no? Kapag empleyado ka, you are an employee, and then of course, may sinusundan kang oras, di ba? May time. No? Now, kapag na-late ka, let's say in your company, in a certain company, kapag late ka, and then, ang mangyayari, may deduction, may salary deduction ka. Okay? Now, in this case, no, you are the person, yung late is the negative or unpleasant. Ito yung unpleasant stimulus, no? This is the unpleasant stimulus. Okay, yung sorry. Yung late, ito pala yung behavior or response mo, sorry. Yung salary deduction mo pala, this is the unpleasant stimulus, no? Now, because of this unpleasant stimulus, later on, hindi ka na malilate. Tama? Kasi nga, nababawasan yung sahod mo. So, gagawin mo, hindi ka na so, we call that one as a positive punishment. Kasi you present an unpleasant stimulus. Okay? Example naman, kabaligtaran, employee ka, pero wala kang late, no? May oras kang para pumasok, and then may reward ka naman for the perfect attendance, no? And then may let's say may bibigyan ka ng every month makaka-receive ka ng 3,000 pesos. Now, this 3,000 pesos now, it's the reward, no? Reward siya. So, this 3,000 pesos is a pleasant stimulus. This means, tinatawag natin to na positive reinforcement. No? Positive reinforcement. Ngayon, kapag tinanggal mo na to, yung 3,000 pesos, yun na yung negative reinforcement. Okay? Sorry pala. Hindi baligtad. Pag tinanggal mo pala yung yung punishment, that's in negative reinforcement. Baka, sorry, I correct. Baka maguluhan kayo. Okay? I think hindi ko kayo ginulo, no? Nagets naman? Tama? Thank you. Okay? So ganito yan, no? Empleyado ka, nagtatrabaho ka, aware ka na kapag lagi kang late, no, merong equivalent na deduction. So that is a positive punishment. Kasi yung deduction is a unpleasant stimulus. Empleyado ka, aware ka na kapag perfect attendance ka, meron kang reward na 3,000. The 3,000 now as a reward, tinatawag natin yon na positive reinforcement. Ngayon, kapag tinanggal na yung unpleasant stimulus, yung deduction, tinatawag natin yon na negative reinforcement. Negative punishment naman siya kapag inalis mo yung reward na, ito yon, no, yung 3,000, no, 3,000 pesos, inalis mo na, that's a negative punishment, reducing a behavior by removing the pleasant stimulus when the behavior occurs. No? Okay? So, para hindi ma-confuse. Okay, so any concern or reaction, questions? Want to clarify something? Okay, mukhang wala naman. Okay.
Sir,
Andre,
ano po difference po ng ganito po, yung classical, yung kanina po,
a very good questions. Yes. Sa classical, wala namang punishment na na-involve. Walang reinforcement, no? Basta yung classical conditioning, pinrove lang niya na when you associate things, parang association siya. When things like the bell, yung sound ng bell, when it is associated to something like the unconditioned stimulus, when continuously referring, magkakaroon ng association or learning or yung tinatawag na acquisition phase. Pero walang no. Actually, pinoprove niya, no, hindi ko lang na-emphasize. Kasi pag pinress niya ito, may sounds, no. Pero iba kasi yung ginawa niya, no. Hindi naman ibig sabihin na kapag may sounds, may food, no. Hindi niya na-learn. Ang nag-emphasize or something na stress sa learning ng daga, pag pinindot niya yung lever, may pagkain. Hindi naman yung kapag tumunog. It's a different, no. Unlike yung kay pag pinatutunog niya yung bell, yung aso, pag narinig niya yung tumunog yung bell, may pagkain, parang gano'n, no. Parang similar with us, no. 'Di ba yung sabi ko pag narinig mo yung bell, dahil may prior knowledge na, alam mo na yung bell na to, it's either nagbebenta ng ice cream or yung recess. Okay? Klaro ba, Andre?
yes po, klaro po.
Okay. Okay. Now, from the classical conditioning, punta tayo sa dalawang okay, ito pala yung tinatanong ni Andre, no? So ano ba pagkakaiba, no? For Pavlov, there is only a stimulus. Pag may stimulus, may response. Ito yung learning kay Pavlov. Pero kay Skinner, yung learning, something to do with reinforcement and punishment, no? So here, they both agree with what we call yung acquisition, no? Yung acquisition phase, ito yung na-learn mo yung behavior. However, they also agree na mawawala yung behavior kapag hindi na ginawa, no? Ano ba, yung kay Pavlov, hindi mo na finare yung bell sa pagkain, so probably the dog will not respond anymore. Yung daga naman, halimbawa, pinipress niyo yung lever and then wala na lumalabas na pagkain, so probably hindi na niya gagawin yon, no? And generalization, they both happen, no? Or kahit sa human being. So generalization, di ba, kay Pavlov, yung aso, every time na makakarinig siya ng bell, regardless, no? Pag nakarinig siya ng bell, kahit regardless of anong klaseng bell yan, magre-react siya, di ba? Same thing with the mouse, no? O yung daga, kapag mag-generalization din siya, dahil may sound din na pinroduce doon, any sound na maririnig siya, meron din siya reaction. Later on, of course, discrimination, ito yung even animals, no, can somehow discriminate. not discriminating na what I mean discriminate, something you know the difference, no? Parang tayo, we can discriminate na itong tunog ng bell na to ay sa simbahan, itong tunog ng bell na to ay sa nagka-ice cream, itong tunog ng bell na to ay sa eskwelahan. So that is discrimination, no? That means we're able to identify the differences or the even a minimal differences you were able to recognize or identify. We call that as discrimination. Okay? May tanong ba doon? Bago tayo magpatuloy.
Wala po.
Okay, thank you, Audrey. Okay. Now, let's proceed to cognitive development theory. Ito very significant to sa mga PE ed, no? Same thing with BSED, no? And BT-BTED, although nag-focus kasi ng BT-BTED, it's more on the application of something, no? Yung sa TLE, no? So, John Piaget, as the proponent of cognitive development theory, he believed that, or somehow he noted that the relationship between individuals and their environment are essential to cognitive development. Naniniwala siya, parang yan kay Eric Erikson kung natatandaan nyo. No? Pero sa kanya sa learning, kay Eric Erikson, it's the development of certain behavior, no? or a certain personality. But sa kanya, the social environment, it's somehow significant to the development of the cognitive development, no? Or significant to the development of cognition of the individual. No? Pag sinabi natin cognition, this is referring to the mental process of the individual. No? Naniniwala siya dyan. Tama, no? Isang example na lang about sa language. Paano natutunan ng baby yung pagsasalita? Di ba, sa kanyang social environment, sa mga taong nakapalibot sa kanya, no? Kapag yung mga kaalubilo niya na bata or tao, yung bata na they talk to her or to him na appropriately or yung hindi nagbubulol or hindi inaano yung language, so probably makakapagsalita siya ng maayos, tama? Pero kung pinresent mo sa kanya yung ganitong language, i-adapt niya yun, no? That's the social environment, no? So Piaget also stressed that cognitive levels is a combination of assimilation. Pag sinabi natin assimilation, this is referring to our capability, no, fitting new information to existing knowledge structures, no, and something to do also with accommodation, no. Ito naman, we change the knowledge structure to fit what is new, no. Okay, ibig lang sabihin, kumbaga, na ano natin, parang discrimination din, no. We're able to recognize or something na ano natin na nakikita natin yung differences. But these things happen muna, will happen in a different stage. No? Later, we will go to the 4 stages, no, of cognitive development. Piaget believed that learning results from dynamic interaction between assimilative and accommodative process. No? Yung assimilation and accommodation. No? Sabi niya, children around the world proceed through a series of 4 stages in fixed order. No? Ito yung kanyang theory. No? He likewise assumed that without having such experience, no, importante din yun, no, children cannot reach the highest level of cognitive development. Totoo yun, no? Pero, kaya nga ito yung wino-worry nung pandemic, no? Di ba nung pandemic, 2020 hanggang 2021, so ano tayo lahat, no? Online, at the same time, walang face-to-face. So very very crucial yon nung incident na yon, particularly sa elementary, no? Sa preschooler and then yung mga grade schooler, no? Very yon. Kaya nga, no, kumbaga this theory somehow, no, na-prove niya, no, very important yon, no? Kaya children without the experience, social learning or something to do with social learning also, or without the social environment, somehow children cannot reach their highest level of cognitive growth. Kaya lang ang nangyari, no, yung social environment natin naging digital, no. Bakit siya naging digital? Kasi we see other people or we communicate with other people using the digital media, no? Yung social media, no? Like yan, like the messenger, yung ginagawa natin ngayon. Ito, parang example yan, no? Pero of course, kaya nga yung DepEd, they decided na mag face-to-face na sila, no? Unlike in, of course, sa college, hindi na dine-develop yung ano ninyo, your cognitive or your cognition, it's already developed. Na-develop na yan, no? Kasi at a certain age, as we grow mature, na-develop yan. Kaya hindi na kailangan yung sinasabi ni ni Piaget. Okay? Now, to continue. So, ayan ang theory ni Piaget, no? So it starts from sensory motor stage, from the word senses and motor skills, that is from birth to 2 years old, no? And then from 2 to 7 years old, tinatawag yung pre-operational stage. And then from 7 to 12 years old, that's the concrete operational stage. And then from 12 to adulthood, that is the formal operational stage. So kung titignan natin yung kanyang theory, cognitive maturity, it's nangyayari sa during the puberty stage or adolescent stage, no? Dito, yung sa ano yan, kumbaga grade 12 years old, I think you are grade 11, grade 10, grade 7, tama? Pag 12 years old ka ba, grade 7 ka. Okay, thank you, Audrey, for affirming.
Yes po.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Although in our time, hindi, no. Minsan grade 6 ka pa lang dito. Kasi nag-start yung schooling in time, grade 1 ka, 7 years old, no. Pero ngayon, early, no, 6 or 5. Okay. Now, ano ba yung nangyayari during the sensory motor stage? Ito yung kanyang theory, no. So the infant under sensory motor stage, meron siyang limitation, no. Among the limitation na nangyayari sa kanya, yung tinatawag na object permanence, no? Wait. So, object permanence, ibig sabihin, pag tinanong mo na, ano ba, example, this one, where's the apple? Tuturo niya dito, nandyan. And then, kinover mo yung apple. Where's the apple? Halimbawa, at first, kinover mo yung apple, nandyan siya. And then, inalis mo na yung apple, and then you ask the baby or the infant kung nasan yung apple. Of course, pipinpoint niya pa rin or tuturo pa rin niya na nandyan. No? Yun ang tinatawag nating object permanence. One of the limitation. No? Parang hindi niya pa na-recognize na namumove yung isang bagay or pwede siyang ma-change. Then, another limitation that occur during the sensory stage, yung capacity for symbolic representation. No? Hindi pa niya na ano yan, no? Hindi pa niya kayang i-determine. Halimbawa, you show a square, I'm referring to infant, no? But not 2 years old, no? At least less than 1 years old, a square, and then a rectangle. So, kahit na sinabi mong square yan, and this is rectangle, kapag natandaan lang yan yung square, so sasabihin niya kahit rectangle yan, square. Parang ano, no, every time na binibigyan mo siya apple, and then wala kang, one time binigyan mo siya ng ano, ng, let's say, orange, or para sa kanya yung orange, apple din. No? Parang pag nakakita siya ng dog, meron dog sa bahay, yung aso, may 4 na paa, may balahibo, may 2 tenga. And then, nakakita siya ng pusa. Para sa kanya, yung pusa ay aso rin, no? I'm referring to 1-year-old below, no? Not 2 years old. Of course, 2 years old, kaya na niya, no? Capacity of symbolic presence. And then the motor skill, aware naman tayo na hindi pa siya makakalakad, no? Hindi pa fully developed yung kanyang motor skills, no? So those are the limitation under the sensory motor stage. Now, from sensory motor stage, we have the pre-operational stage. These are referring to the preschooler cognition. So John Piaget theorized that children's early thought tends to be slow, tama, and centered, no, on the salient picture of an experience or event of time, no. Tama, no, medyo ano pa, hindi pa ganun ka-abstract, no, or hindi pa sila ganun kagaling sa abstraction. Piaget noted that children do not yet understand concrete logic, no. Tama, no, kung babalikan natin to, 2 to 7 years old, no, yung ano niya, no, yung sinabi niya, 2 to 7 years old. Tama, no? Hindi pa masyado. And cannot mentally manipulate information. Correct, no? Medyo nahihirapan pa sila doon. Kaya very significant, no? Kung educator ka, particularly in grade school, alam mo yan, no? Na nagtuturo ka ng grade 2, 7 years old. So probably 7 years old, wag mong ipilit na kung anong alam mo or nagagawa mo, magagawa nila. So you come up, kailangan alam mo yung level nila, no? So sabi nga, thinking in this state is still egocentric. Ito kailangan din natin silang unawain, no? Or i-respect. Kasi bakit egocentric? Ito, limitation nila to. Ibig sabihin ng limitation nila, halimbawa, kapag sinabi niya na mas marami to, para sa kanya, in his or her concept, ito yung marami, no? Meaning the child has difficulty seeing the viewpoint of others, no? Hindi pa ganun ka-develop yung thinking nila, no? In the pre-operational stage, sometimes they classify as, they split it into sub-stages like the symbolic function, no? And the intuitive function, no? Or intuitive thoughts, no? Pero we will not elaborate this one, no? Okay. Some of the limitation that can be found in the pre-operational stage, yun nga yung isa, yung centration, no? Pag sinabi natin centration, ito yung egocentric siya, no? In centration, no, is the act of focusing all attention to one characteristic or dimension of a situation while disregarding the others, no? Yun ang centration, no? Or egocentrism. Kumbaga, kung ano lang yung gustong paniwalaan ng bata, 7 years old, no? Yun lang ang tama sa kanya. O hindi naman tama, what I mean, yun lang ang totoo sa kanya, no? And then yung conservation naman, here nahihirapan pa sila, no? The awareness that altering substance appearance does not change its basic properties. No? Ibig sabihin parang pare-pareho lang sa kanila, no? Halimbawa, no? Shane, are you here? Lumang Shane.
Sir,
Yes.
ano po yun, sir?
Okay. Sige. Medyo
Yes
may...
po, sir. Ano po yun?
Shane, anong mas mabigat? 1 kilong pako o 1 kilong bulak?
Sorry po, mahina po kasi sa akin yung connection, sir. Kanina po.
Okay. Sige. Sige, Shane. Si ano na lang. I think si Joshua. Joshua, Kalyas. Joshua, ano yung mas mabigat? 1 kilong pako o 1 kilong bulak? Joshua.
Sinong Joshua, sir?
Ay, kasing Kalyas. So, yes, Joshua. Ano yung
Pako,
mas
sir,
mabigat?
siyempre.
Yes, correct. Pero, tama, no? Kasi nga, hindi na kayo 7 years old or less than 7 years old, no? Shane, yung dapat tatanong ko, no? Pero minsan nababalatong din tayo, no? Nalilito rin tayo. Minsan, sasabihin natin pa ako kasi metal siya, mabigat siya. Pero, adult thinking, aware ka na pareho lang, pero actually, hindi pala mabigat yung pako, no? Kasi ang tanong ko pala, anong mas mabigat? Joshua, sorry. 1 kilong pako o 1 kilong
Parehas lang
bulak?
po.
Yes, parehas
Parehas lang, sir.
Oo, tama, Shane. Ang ano pala, pag 7 years old ka or below, pwedeng sagot mo pako. Kasi you're thinking na metal is heavier than bulak, no? Yun, Joshua. Okay, thank you for reenactment. Hindi, bali reenactment yun ni Joshua, no? Nag-pretend si Joshua na 7 years old siya. Kaya ang sinagot niya, siyempre, sir, pa ako. No, Joshua? Okay? So yan ang limitation, no? Conservation. Kaya kung teacher ka, no, kung teacher kayo, na nagtuturo ka ng preschool, so dapat aware ka na hindi pa nila maano yan, no? Hindi pa sila ganun or their cognition is not yet that mature for that, no? Kaya, ano ba, pinresent mo, no? Dalawang ano yan, may dalawa kang baso. Yung isa ganyan katangkad, yung isa ganito katangkad, no? Pero mas maano siya. Let's say yung laman niyan na pareho lang 1 liter. Pareho lang same 1 liter. Okay, ito rin yung parang pumapasok din yung egocentrism dito, no? Kapag tinanong mo yung bata, alin dyan yung mas marami? Siyempre, pipiliin niya yung matangkad, no? Ito yung para sa kanya, ito yung marami. So papasok din to, no? Yung centration. But with centration, they have limitation still. They still have limitation in their conservation, no? Okay? So, kung magtuturo ka ng grade 1, although 8 years old, kaya na siguro yan, no? Hindi na masyado. Hanggang 7 years old lang yung ano niya, di ba? And of course, meron ding ano, no? Some 7 years old, they can recognize already. Okay? Now, irreversibility, of course, kabaligtaran yan is reversibility. So one of their limitation is something to do with irreversibility, referred to when children are unable to mentally reverse a sequence of event. No? Halimbawa, reciting the alphabet, kahit naman tayo, hindi, no, pabaliktad, medyo mahirap, no? O kaya 10, 9, 8, 7, yung numbers, medyo hindi pa nila kaya yan, no? And class inclusion naman, it referred to a kind of conceptual thinking that children in the pre-operational stage cannot yet grasp, no, information, no? Hindi pa gano'n, no? Yung inability to focus. Kaya minsan mayroon pa silang attention span, no? They have limitation on the attention span. Kaya nga ang oras ng pag-aaral nila it's lesser, no, or kakaunti as compared to the adult learner, no? Bawa yung ginagawa natin 3 hours, di sila pwede, no? And then yung transitive inference naman, ito yung tinatawag na transitive inference is using previous knowledge to determine the missing piece using basic logic. Limitation din nila yan. Wala pa sila ng ganito na yung tinatawag natin transitive knowledge. So, although they can analyze but not that as compared to the adult, no? Hindi ganun kaano yung kanilang analysis. Okay? Okay. So, clear? So, under pre-operational stage, no, cognitive development in the early stage, no, yung working memory nila, ito pa lang yung kanilang capacity, no? Digit span, no? In the digit span test, no, pag 2 years old, 1 digit lang. Yung pwedeng matandaan niya, no? 4 years old, 2 to 3 digits, no? Pag 12 years old naman, 6 digits, no? And average adult, 7 digits, no? Ito, according to Miller, ganun din, no? Only 7 digits yung pwede nating matandaan, no? Pero cellphone number natin, 11 digits siya. Anong nangyayari? Oh, ito yung cellphone number mo. Inuuna ko lang yan, no? Ito madaling tandaan yan kasi similar number. Ito 11 digits siya. Pero natatandaan mo siya. Bakit? Kasi nga adult na tayo and then may parang tayo tinatawag yan ng chunk. Sina-chunk mo. So from 7 digit naging ano na siya 1, 2, 3, 4 digit na lang. 11 digit naging 4 digit na lang siya. No? Kaya natatandaan natin. And then as regard to pre-operational stage, so yung kanilang inhibitory control, yung tinatawag na self-regulation. So self-regulation is the ability to stay focused on what you want by suppressing your attention to other things, no? Medyo hindi pa sila develop dyan, no? Pero pag adult ka na, automatic you have, we believe that you have self-regulated learning. No? Self-regulation involved in much of what we consider to be mature behavior, such as ignoring distractions, waiting for your turn, no? Resisting temptation, sticking with the boring task until it's finished, and so on. Of course, kapag adult ka na, meron ka na nito. But for preschooler, siguro may madedistract pa sila, and then they cannot wait for their turn. Some, no, mas matatempt sila, and then sticking with a boring task, no. Ewan ko, no, although hindi ko pa nasubukan to, no, kasi hindi naman ako nagtuturo ng preschool. So let's say siguro yung waiting for their turn, no, or kaya for avoiding distraction. Try nyo lang, no, kung in the future magtuturo kayo. Try to halimbawa preschooler yan, no? Parang lang, marshmallow challenge, no? Try mo kung totoo nga to, no? Bigyan mo sila mag-set ka ng rules. Bigyan mo sila ng isang marshmallow, no? I'm just talking this kapag nagturo kayo, and then try to prove kung totoo nga, no? And then mag-set ka ng rules na wag na lang kakainin yung marshmallow until you say it. No? And then titignan mo kung gagawin nga nila yun, no? And then you observe kung paano nila, no? We call that as in self-regulation, no? Okay? Pero sa adults, siyempre, kaya mo na yan. So another limitation is something to do with cognitive flexibility. It's the ability to adapt our behavior and thinking and respond to the environment, no? Although nature natin to, yung cognitive flexibility, but for this stage na preparational, 2 to 7 years old, medyo may pa to, no? Medyo nahihirapan, no? Kaya nga may nagkakaroon ng separation anxiety dahil hindi pa sila makapag-adapt na dati kasama nilang parent nila or nasa bahay lang. So may cases na gano'n. Okay? Kaya kailangan talaga, if you are a preschool teacher, particular PE ed, no? And then sign ka sa grade 1 or 6 years old, so dapat you are aware about this, no? Okay? Okay ba? May concern ba or tanong? Thank you, Shane and Ray. Okay, to continue. So these are some na pwedeng behavior that is expected, no, during those stage. Kapag 0 to 2 years old, the child begin to interact with the environment. Tama 'yon, no? And then kapag 2 to 7 years old na, the child begins to represent the world symbolically, no? Ito na yung tinatawag nating animism, no? Ano ba yung animism? Animate, no? Lahat tayo naranasan natin 'yan, no? Yung kinakausap natin, yung mga laruan natin, ay even our pet, no? Akala natin nagsasalita sila or we pretend that they talk, no? Or they can hear us. Yan, katulad dito, yung kanyang teddy bear, pasyente niya, nag-animism na. So yun, no? Symbolically. Of course, 7 to 12 years old, the child learn rules such as conservation. Alam niya, yan. Conservation here, it's not referring to water conservation or something. Conservation here, it's something to do, they were able to discriminate, no, differences with things, no. First, as an adolescent, no, concrete thinking about the future, alam mo na, no, or adolescent can transcend the concrete situation and thinking about the future, yung logical, no. So, nung pagkakaiba ng dalawa, ay later school. Okay? So, that's, of course, in the operation, concrete logical operational stage, or formal operational stage, that's referring to the mature being, tayo na yun, no? Kaya, you know how to analyze. Although kanina, when I asked Joshua which ano yung mas mabigat, 1 kilong pako o 1 kilong bulak, parang siguro nagmamadaling sumagot si Diyos, di ba? Kaya nasabi niya 1 kilong pako, no? Although we understand that, no? Kasi parang meron tayong tinatawag na association, metal yung pako, mas mabigat siya. Nawala sa pandinig niya yung pareho lang silang 1 kilo, no? Okay? Now, what about Vygotsky? Vygotsky or Lev Vygotsky, yung kanyang theory of cognitive development, nag-focus siya sa role of culture and society in children's intellectual growth. No? Parang pareho lang sila, kaya lang isa, in-involve niya yung society and the culture. He believed that individual's cognitive function could never really be separated from his or her environment, no, or culture, no, embedded in culture. No? Parang yung discussion natin before. He underscored that children's development are conditioned, no? Parang conditioning and shaped by their culture. Okay? Yung emphasis niya talaga culture, no? Totoo naman. Ito yung ano niya, no? Yung kanyang parang paradigm, no? So Vygotsky hypothesized that cognitive development is both socio-historical, no? O socio-cultural and natural, inborn or innate. Ibig sabihin, kinonsider niya, oh, same din naman, no? Parang kay Piaget. Piaget also believed nature yon, no? Kumbaga, kaya nature kasi yun ang certain limitation at that age, no? He emphasized language as tool through which other convey formal knowledge, no? That is scientific and concept, no? Vygotsky likewise stressed that novice learner or new learners grasp a concept or perform skill only when others provide, ito yung kanyang tinatawag na ano, no, yung scaffolding, yung may guidance or may guide, no? So mas madali daw matutunan kung merong scaffolding, no? Ito yung kanyang ano, no, i-elaborate natin yan, no? So the child in context, no, merong mediated learning, no? And then related to its learning is yung socio-cultural niya, and then yung tool, yung language, including the inner speech, and then kung may guidance, no, scaffolding, mas mabilis yung learning, no? And tinatawag na yun yung zone of proximal development. We call that as a zone of proximal development. Ito yun, no? So the zone of pag sinabi natin zone of proximal development, according to Lev Vygotsky, no? So ito daw yung key construct niya, no, sa kanyang theory. Example, in this one, the zone of proximal development, it's preparing what can I do with help, yung scaffolding niya, no? So proximal, the zone of proximal development, it's defined as the space between what a learner can do without assistance and what a learner can do with adult guidance or in collaboration with more capable peers. Yun ang scaffolding, no? In other words, parang collaboration, no? Kumbaga, ano yung significant ng collaboration or cooperation, no? With learning. So mas effective ba yung learning kapag merong collaboration o kaya merong guidance or scaffolding, no? Yung nasa gitna naman na to, what can I do as a learner? Ito yung tinatawag niya zone of achieved development. Ito yung where the learner is right now. Okay? So learning for Vygotsky, somehow, no, although this is not referring to what we call the sensory motor stage or the early childhood, no, maybe we can say na yung kanyang pre-operational stage, no, pwede, no, sa pre-operational stage, no, mas magiging effective yung learning kapag merong scaffolding, no, and higher hanggang what we call yung concrete operational stage. Okay? Vygotsky also considered yung significance of language, no, particular yung self-talk or yung inner speech, no. Sabi ni Vygotsky, in its theory of yung kanyang inner speech, ito yun, no. So external dialogue, ito yung mga naririnig natin, no, or ng bata or ng preschooler. And then meron some private speech. And then from its private speech, na-expand yan sa kanyang inner speech. And then this inner speech, nagiging condensed inner speech siya. So Vygotsky theorized that, sabi niya, yung cognitive development daw, the inner speech daw, or yung quality of self-talk, it's the outcome of the developmental process. Okay? Kahit naman ngayon, di ba, there are cases that we talk to ourselves. Ginagawa niyo pa ba rin yan, yung quality of self-talk or yung inner speech? Are you still talking to yourself? Kahit na mentally lang, no? Ako minsan, hindi pala minsan, I always talk to myself, no? Parang, yes, very good, no? Parang, ganito, oo, parang kausap ko yung sarili ko, parang ganun, no? Hindi ka naman ganun, no? Hindi. No. This is natural thing na minsan ginagawa natin, no? Huwag lang maging palagi, no? Baka ganun na siya, no? Okay? So, yun, no? So, yung inner speech daw natin, nag-evolve yan, no? On a private speech. From inner speech, nag-evolve siya into private speech. Yung tinatawag natin egocentric speech. So here, pag sinabi natin children, pre-operational, in which children talk to themselves while engaged in cognitive tasks. Yung parang, ano pa yung gagawin ko dito? Anong gagawin ko dito? Parang ganyan, no? Halimbawa, binigyan mo siya ng anong gagawin ko dito? Parang kinakausap yung sarili, okay? Now, this private speech na sinasabi niya, the private speech na sinasabi niya, no? Nire-represent daw yung transitional stage in the process of internalization, no? In which interpersonal dialogues are not yet fully transformed into intrapersonal one, no? So, self-talk pa rin, no, yung private speech. Hindi pa rin siya, it's more of interpersonal rather than intrapersonal. No? It's more of intrapersonal rather than interpersonal. Baliktad, no? And then sabi niya, yung inner speech natin or tinatawag niyang overt speech or verbal thinking can be defined as our subjective experience of language in the absence of overt and audible articulation. Okay? Kung you are only, yung nag-isa ka lang, you are alone, and then sometimes you are talking to yourself, so that is your inner speech. Okay? So very significant din siya sa learning natin, no? Kumbaga, aside from the culture na sinasabi ni Vygotsky, so somehow learning, or aside sa tinatawag niyang scaffolding na that can augment learning or enhance learning, so somehow yung preschooler or under the pre-operational stage, very significant din yung tinatawag nating private speech. Kung iaano natin yung kay Piaget, yun ang animism, no? Parang animism. So if we compare the two, yung learning nila, no? So they do believe in the individual, no? And then the social environment are the factor in learning, no? So yung theory ni Piaget, cognitive development, yung kay Vygotsky, yung sociocultural, and then of course very significant sa yung individual cognitive development for Vygotsky, yung scaffolding niya and social influence, no? And then for Piaget, yung assimilation and accommodation niya, and then yung mediated learning naman ni Vygotsky. Okay? Question? Concern? Yes, Audrey?
Sir, pwede po pabalik po dun sa last slide.
Yung kanina?
Apo.
This one?
Yes po, sir. Wait lang po.
Okay. Recorded naman to Audrey. May question dito.
Okay na po pala, sir. Thank you po.
No questions? Oh. Okay. Now, before we proceed, with social cognitive and learning or social learning theory, may clarification ba?
Wala
Ano
po.
naman, sir?
Okay. Thank you for responding, Audrey and Joshua and Dave. Okay. So now, so in our first meeting, hindi pala first meeting, in our first discussion, about the self, so probably under the psychological perspective of self, we already encountered, si Skinner, si Skinner, si Albert Bandura. Sorry. Wait lang, I'll charge my. Okay, kung natatandaan nyo, when we talk about the development of self, it's something to do with the theory of Bandura. No? Ano ba natatandaan mo kay Albert Bandura? Alicia.
Po, sir.
So,
Ano po,
what do you remember about the Albert Bandura nung discuss natin yung self and it has something to do with the psychological perspective, no?
Ano?
Paano daw na-develop yung self in the social learning theory or social cognitive? Yung natatandaan mo, it's something to do with actually kinompare natin siya kay hindi kay Charles Orton Cooley, no? Kinompare natin siya kay Herbert Mead.
sir, yung about po sa pag-response po.
Okay, pag-respond. Thank you.
Okay
Yes,
na po.
Beatrice. Okay, thank you, Alicia. How about Beatrice?
Individual learned by observer or imitating the behavior of others po.
Yes, correct. Yung by observational learning or imitation. Tama. Jeremy, baka may gustong i-add. Jeremy?
Sir, same lang po nung kay Beatrice.
Yeah, correct. No, yun ang 'di ba, yung in-emphasize natin na we learn ourselves by observing the behaviors of others, no? Yun ang yun ang concept or idea ng social cognitive learning. Okay, Alicia, yes, you want to add more?
Self-awareness po, sir, tsaka self-behavior po.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yung mga sa efficacy. Thank you, Alicia. Okay, now. So for Arthur Pandura, when we talk about behavior, we believe that behavior is learned, by imitating or observing the behavior of others, and others are referred to our models. Tama, no? Minsan nga kahit although hindi pala, iba naman 'yon, minsan naman something to do with innate or inborn, kasi may mga mannerism na kahit hindi mo nakita yan sa parent mo, minsan ginagawa mo sila, Although iba 'yon, hindi 'yon, pag sinabi nating social cognitive or social learning theory, anything that we learn by imitation or by observing the behaviors of others, Di ba ganun yung self? Under the social cognitive theory, kung pagmamasdan yung picture na to, so probably, bakit ginagawa ito ng bata? Hindi parang, although matagal na yung pictures na to, na siguro 60s pa yan, Do you think ano yung reason do you think why this baby, hindi pala bata, baby, Why this baby pushing the car, Yes, Audrey.
Sir, try lang po. Pinaglalaruan niya po. Kasi
Okay.
po, naugalian po ng mga ibang bata na pinaglalaruan po or tinutulak-tulak po yung kotse or tricycle po. Kasi po dati po hindi naman po tayo namumulat sa sa technology. Kaya po more on po yung mga baby ay yung mga bata po na edad na 3 years old to up po nasa labas po.
Okay, very good. Probably pwede yun, no? Tama. Joshua, yes, Joshua.
Ah,
Josh,
pwedeng nakita niya, sir, or ginaya.
correct. So, tama, no? So, pwedeng this baby, maybe he or she saw her father or his father na doing this. Kaya, parang na-curious lang, ginagawa niya, no? Without any knowledge na basta gusto ginagawa lang yan, no? So that's a behavior, no? You learn that behavior by imitating or maybe by observing the behaviors of others, no? Sabi nga ni Bandura, no? Actually, last year pa lang siya namatay, no? Nagtuturo siya sa ano na ng psychology o sa professor of psychology, no? Dr. Bandura at what they call the Stanford BNA, no? Siya, no? Pero last 2021, although hindi namatay na rin siya, no? Sabi niya, people's develop motivation, affective state, and action are based more on what they believe. Very significant sa kanya to, no? Yung kanyang self-efficacy than on what is objectively the case. Okay? Elaborate natin later yan. So learning for the social cognitive theory, it has something to do with observation, modeling, o kaya imitation. Or, sabi niya, we learn through vicarious. Ano ba yung vicarious experience, no? Vicarious, it refers to the experience in the imagination through the feelings or action of another person, no? That's vicarious, no? Without direct, kahit na walang direct interaction, kahit na iniisip mo lang yan, and then something from what you are thinking, it's nagkakaroon na ng learning, no? And it's something to do with fortuitous event, no? Fortuitous, no? So pag sinabi natin fortuitous, it occurs or it happened by accident or by chance, no? Rather than design. Pag sinabing design, pinlano. Okay? So, ganun daw nangyayari yung learning. No? Learning, mas mga nangyayari sa with these two. And then later on, of course, we already mentioned this in our meetings before, no? Yan, no? So, in the social cognitive, ito yung nangyayari. No? Pag yung model, meron kang model, no? And then, si learner. So, si learner, ino-observe niya si model, no? So una, kailangan nagpo-focus siya, meron siyang attention, no? Stimulus focus or stimuli focus. Now, when focusing, no, nagkakaroon ng retention, something to do with our memory. Rehearse encode, no? Or encoding. Encoding, it means you are storing the information or anything. Now, from the retention, what will happen? You can produce, no, the what you have observed to the model. Yung tinatawag yung motor reproduction, no? O nagkakaroon ka ng practice feedback. However, pwedeng hanggang dito lang siya, no? You learned it, pero kung lacking in motivation, walang reward o kaya reinforcement, hindi siya mangyayari. Or yung tinatawag niyang self-efficacy. Or self-efficacy belief, no? Yung tinatawag niyang self-efficacy. Ibig sabihin, minsan, kahit na kaya mong gawin yan, parang self-confidence, no? Although, hindi naman self-confidence yung sinasabi niya. Iba yung self-confidence sa kanya for self-efficacy. Pero somehow, parang sinani mo sila, no? Kahit na minsan alam mong gawin, hindi mo nagagawa dahil nagkukulangan ka ng self-esteem o kaya self-confidence o kaya yung self-efficacy. So pag sinabi ng self-efficacy, we simply refer to the belief in one's capability to organize and execute the courses of action required to manage prospective situation. No? Of course, we mentioned this already. No? Hindi ko na kailangan elaborate. This one, no? Before. I think you remember this one. No? So what enhance our self-efficacy, it's something to do with performance accomplishment. No? Ano ba yan? The experience of mastery of influences your perspective on your abilities. Ibig sabihin kung meron kang prior knowledge and you master this prior knowledge, somehow, mas capable kang gawin ng isang bagay. No? Parang yung practice makes perfect. No? Parang, ba, for example natin, track and field. No? Siyempre yung veteran, minsan may advantage siya sa new fight. No? Or sa, ang tawag natin, pag rookie, no? Mas may advantage siya kasi he has the experience. As mas confident siya or mas mataas yung self-efficacy niya as compared to the new fight or to the rookie. Correct? Pero hindi naman laging ganun, no? Pero mas nga, no? Sabi nga, successful experiences lead to greater feelings of efficacy. Tama. If in the past, marami kang achievement, naging successful ka, therefore, mas mataas yung self-efficacy mo as well your self-confidence. No? Kung i-ano natin to, no? Kung magkukonda ka ng study, mas marami ba yung first timer kesa sa second timer? Or, of course, hindi yan, we cannot generalize with that. No? We cannot conclude kasi kung i-base naman natin sa let passer, means, of course, hindi applicable doon, no? Pero, siguro kaya maraming pumapasa yung first taker, mataas yung kanilang efficacy. No? Kaya yung bumabagsak, maybe mababa yung kanilang efficacy. No? Actually, I conduct a study about that. No? High self-efficacy belief lead to high passing rate. Or parang ano lang to, no? Although I cannot generalize with my study, pero yung study ko, I compare self-efficacy belief with the let passer. No? So in my finding, although hindi sa conclusive, kasi konti lang yung respondent ko, hindi sila umabot ng hundreds, no? Siguro kung mga 300 yon, we can say totoo yon, no? Pero pag high yung efficacy nila, the chance na mas papasa sila sa what we call sa licensure exam. Totoo naman yun, di ba? Pero paano tataas yung efficacy mo? Halimbawa, nung nag-aaral ka, hindi ka naman nag-focus. Hindi mo naman yung information na to. Siyempre, it involve yung performance accomplishment. Tama? Pero minsan, may mga cases naman, summa cum laude, hindi pumasa. Di ba? Yun naman, other factor yun. No? I got preparing doon sa efficacy niya. Baka at that time, merong problem later. Discuss natin yan, no? Sabi nga niya, however, failing to deal with the task or challenge can also undermine and weaken self-efficacy. Tama, no? Sometimes failures can lead to low self-efficacy. But sometimes failure can also be a challenge to increase your efficacy. Okay? Yung susunod niya yung vicarious experience, no? Observing someone else perform a task or under a situation can help you to perform the same task by imitation. Tama. If you succeed in performing a task, you are likely to think that you will succeed as well if the task is not too difficult. Parang, kaya niya, kaya ko rin yan. Parang ganun, no? Observing people who are similar to yourself succeed will increase your belief that you can master similar activity. No? Parang you are in a group, na nakikita mo yung mga klase mo nakakaya nila. So the more na na-challenge ka, that you can do also. No? That's vicarious. And then, of course, encouragement or verbal persuasion, it's very significant also. No? When other people encourage and convince you to perform a task, you tend to believe that you are more capable of performing a task. No? Nakakatulong din yan to elevate or to, yung self-efficacy mo. No? Kung laging sinasabihin ka, kaya mo yan. Yan, no? Yung constructive feedback, no? Sabi nga, it's important in maintaining sense of efficacy as it may help overcome self-doubt. Tama, no? Okay? Parang yung si coach, yan, no? Tama, no? Maraming ganyan, no? Yung factor, yung coach, yung encouragement ng coach. Bakit naging successful, no? or nagiging what I mean successful, nagiging ano no, nagiging spirited sila or yung mga athletes no or naglalaro no. Ito yung ano kanina no. So very significant din yung physiological state natin no. Moods, emotion, physical reaction, and stress level may influence how you feel about your personal abilities. Ito yung case ng ano gumraduate ng cum laude pero bumagsak sa licensure exam kasi nga because of its physiological state. So it can influence also your efficacy, no? Kasi you are not feeling well, no? If you are extremely nervous, you may begin to doubt and develop a big sense of self-efficacy. Tama? Tama, no? Parang confidence, no? Kapag naunahan ka ng kaba mo, yun na yun, minsan mental block ka, no? I experienced that. I have a lot of mental block, no? Una, nung we have speech contest in high school, no, fourth year. I deliver yung The Despair of Judas, no? And then in the middle of the of my discussion, dahil nakita ko ang daming tao, so nauna ng kaba ko, na-block ako, wala akong masabi. Same thing, no? And then because of that incident, and then junior senior prom, I will deliver the leadership speech, no? Or leaders, leader course. So expected memorize mo yun, no? And then what did I do? Dahil alam ko may possibility na ma-block na naman ako, I write it. Para at least kung makalimutan ko, mababasa ko siya. Ewan ko if you have also same experience with that. Okay, kaya yung piece na yun, hindi ko na matandaan, no? The Despair of Judas. Wala any lines, no? Wala na akong matandaan. Okay? Do you have clarification, concern, questions?
Wala, sir.
Wala po, sir.
Okay. Parang ano lang yan, starstruck, no? Believe, survive, no? Very important, no? We believe to ourselves. We, yung self-worth mo, no? Of course, as I mentioned, Indian self-confidence, no? Self-efficacy, it's more of you are believing that you can perform a certain task. Yung sinasabi mo sa sarili, kaya mong gawin yan. No? Kaya mo yan. No? Of course, it's different with self. That is something to do also with self-confidence. No? Minsan mahirap siyang i-distinguish with self-confidence. Okay? Moving on. Okay, for our last topic, yung self-regulated learning. No? As an adult learner, it is expected that you have already developed a self-regulation. No? Okay, actually, the term self-regulation, na-invent ko lang yan, or it has been coined in 1980. No? The term self-regulated brain learning originated from the increased focus on self-regulation in academic setting. So it is believed that this concept emerged from Bandura's self-efficacy belief, no, and was later incorporated into social cognition theory. Self-regulated student, kapag self-regulated student ka, it is expected that, or it referred to the student who are metacognitively, motivationally, and behaviorally active in their own learning process and achieving their own goals. Yung kanina, no, sa in-explain ko a while ago, kay John Piaget, no, yung one limitation of the pre-operation under pre-operational state, yung self-regulation. Kasi yung bata that's hindi pa ganun ka-focus, no, madali siyang ma-distract or mababa yung kanya attention span or mag-focus, no. Unlike adult learner, kayo, hindi na, no. Self-regulated learning refer to one's ability to understand and control one's learning environment. Parang, of course, parang disiplina, no? Diba, disiplina sa pag-aaral, no? Pag nagre-review ka, kaya mong i-shut down yung paligid mo, di ba? And then mag-focus ka lang sa ginagawa mo. That is self-regulated, no? So under self-regulation learning or self-regulation ability, it include the following, no? Nagsiset ka ng goal setting, and then you monitor yourself, self-monitoring, and then self-destruction, destruction, and lastly, yung self-reinforcement. All of this has something to do with self-regulation. Yan, no? Okay? So, there is a study, no? Student daw, most college student daw, they lead to procrastination. Kung nagpo-procrastinate sila, dahil sa low self-regulation. Bakit sila nagpo-procrastinate? No? Procrastinate yung parang ano din, no? Parang although in my sa historical natin, parang may kaugnayan sa manya na habit natin, no? Manya na habit yung bukas na mo, kapampangan, no? Pota na mo, bukas na lang, mamaya na lang, to the point na hindi mo na nagawa. So that time, that lead to procrastination. No? Of course, something to do with your self-regulation ability. Kasi hindi ka nag-set ng goal, hindi mo monitor yung sarili mo, wala kang self-instruction, and then wala kang self-reinforcement. Yung self-reinforcement, ito yung parang reward. Ay, kailangan ko nang tapusin to para at least makapag-relax ako or magawa ko yung ibang bagay, something like that. Okay? So self-regulation is a self-directed process and set of behavior whereby learners transfer their mental abilities into skills and habits through a developmental process that emerges from guided practice and feedback. No? So if you develop self-regulation and develop sa yan, so probably magiging effective learner ka. Now, an effective learner, meron siyang self-regulating skills. It can analyze task requirement, it can set productive goals, and it can select, adapt, or inventing strategies to achieve their objectives. No? Okay? So effective learners also monitor their progress as they work through the task, managing intrusive emotion, waning motivation, as well as adjusting strategies, process to foster success. No? So effective learner daw are referring to the student who ask questions, okay, take notes, yan. No? Pero minsan ngayon, hindi ka na nagta-take notes. Anong ginagawa mo? Nag-screenshot o kaya. Pero hindi, no? Hindi rin. Kasi may sinasabi ako, although recorded to, no, wala naman sa slide natin. No? And then they allocate their time. No? Ibig sabihin, binibigyan nila and their resources in a ways that help them to be in charge of their own learning. No? Okay? So, minsan nakikinig ka lang. No? Very important naman yun. No? Makikinig ako, ganun ako nakikinig. And then later on, while listening, nag-research. No? You go to other, nag-research ka kapag hindi mo naintindihan. No? So what's the importance of self-regulated learning? No? So good self-regulator are developed skills and habit to be effective learner. No? Ito yung significant yan, magiging exhibiting effective learning strategies, effort, and persistence. No? Self-regulated learning strategies help you to prepare or help the learners to prepare lifelong learning, an important capacity to transfer skills, knowledge, abilities from one domain or setting to another. So ito yung mga component niya, no? Cognition, metacognition, and then motivation. Kapag sinabi natin cognition component, include the skills and habits that are necessary to encode, memorize, and recall information as well as think critically. In the metacognition naman, it's a component referred to skills that enable the learners to understand and monitor their cognitive process, while motivation is referred to the component that surpasses the belief and attitudes that affect the use and development of both cognitive and metacognitive skills. So cognitive strategies include learning strategies that can be specific to domain or content, like problem-solving strategies and critical thinking. Of course, dine-develop din yung critical thinking, no? Yung logical thinking. No? Pag sinabi natin critical thinking, it involves a variety of skills such as identifying particular source of information, reflecting on whether or not that information is consistent with prior knowledge. Example, we discussed a lot of theories, no? From those theories, nagkakaroon tayo ng what we call analysis. From that analysis, of course, nai-involve yung critical thinking natin. Diba? Kino-compare mo si Piaget kay Vygotsky, ano bang pagkakaiba ng dalawa? No? Kahit hindi ko sinasabi, upon learning this, ikaw mismo, nag-a-analyze ka. So we call that as your critical thinking. No? And then, pag sinabi nating metacognition component, it consists of declarative knowledge, procedural, and conditional. Kapag sinabi natin declarative knowledge, these are knowledge about oneself as learner, factor that influence performance. Okay? Ito yung sa sarili mo. No? As a learner, you grasp a lot of bits of information, no? And then from those information that you have, nagiging knowledge sila, diba? So those are your declarative knowledge. And then in procedural knowledge naman, these are knowledge about strategies and other procedure. Or kapag sinabi natin sa memory naman, kapag sinabi mong declarative memory, yung general facts, no? Kapag procedural knowledge naman or procedural memory naman, something to do with skill, no? Same thing here, no? Now, kapag sinabi mo conditional knowledge, knowledge of why and when to use a particular strategy. Ito yung option mo ng conditional knowledge. And then, under the metacognition, meron tayong dalawang process. No? Yung knowledge of cognition, which include declarative, procedural, and conditional. In the knowledge of cognition, under declarative knowledge, nagkakaroon ka ng awareness of the factor that influence your own learning. No? And then sa procedural naman, you knowing a collection of strategies to use for learning. And then sa conditional knowledge, choosing the appropriate strategy for the specific learning. Later we will elaborate that. Then sa regulation of cognition naman, you set goals and planning, monitor and controlling your learning, or evaluate your own regulation. It means assessing the strategy you are using is showing or not making adjustments, working or not making adjustment and trying something new. So after that, dito ka pupunta ng regulation. So under motivation naman component, ito yung efficacy, yung kanina. No? The degree to which one is confident that one can perform a task or accomplish a goal. O yung tinatawag nating epistemological belief. Ano naman to? This is referring to the belief about the origin and nature of knowledge or something to do with the inborn or innate. Okay? So, hindi ko na pagagawa to. This is an activity, no? Supposedly gagawin to, no? Audit for an exam, pero wag na. Pero we will, na, although, hindi naman lahat ganitong ginagawa, no? So, una, kapag nag-prepare ka, so meron kang planning, no? So, it involves your strategy, yung oras na gagamit mo, ano yung priority mo. And then from planning, yung performance mo, ano yung grade mo, ano yung naramdaman mo, and then your level. Okay, after doing that, babalik ka, mag-plan ka ulit, you set goal, and then strategy. Okay? So ano ba yung mga strategy na ginagawa mo? Of course, may kanya-kanya tayo, no? I will not impose this, no? Yung iba, nag-group study, o kaya practice quizzes or review session, o kaya yung talk, inner speech, no? Kinakausap mo yung sarili mo or ano ka. Pero usually, palagay ko, self-study kayo. No? So to end our discussion, again, let us recall yung sinabi ni Plato. Sabi ni Plato, the first and best victory is to conquer self. No? If you can conquer yourself, it's a proof, no? Or maybe it's an evidence that you develop your self-regulation. These are our sources. Okay, so that's the end of our discussion. And that is part of what we call now sa module 3. No? Actually, may na-upload. Hindi, wala pa yata sa inyo. Hindi pa na-upload pala. Thank you, Joshua. Thank you, Lian. So any clarification, questions, reactions? I will stop the recording now.